Really, this is just, I know you all wanted to talk to us. This is a chance to do it all at one time, so we didn't have to figure out four separate meetings or five. Um, and then you're all welcome to join me after this. We're digging trees and planting trees at Kavanaugh Park for Arbor Day, which I think we put an advisory out about, so you may have other folks there from your stations. But that'll be a lot of fun. I'm wearing my sneakers, if you're wondering. It's a beautiful day for it. But we do this just about every year. I think we did it at the zoo last year. It's a lot of fun, planting some trees in Lansing. You good? Okay.
I got a free tree from my Subaru dealership. I don't know how to plant it.
You got to water it. That's the issue with trees. We give out trees to a lot of folks, but you have to, otherwise you're going to have a free dead tree. Yeah.
Now I know. Now you saved my tree.
Don't forget to water it.
I won't.
Yeah, that's
a common. Water a lot of my plants.
Common mistake. If you don't water the tree, then 6 months or so. But again, you're asking the mayor. You should ask an arborist. The arborist is a little better. We ready?
I am.
Ready? All right. Well, so welcome. There's been lots of and other things regarding the drag race on MLK. So Chief and I wanted to bring everyone together to just give information. For me, I put out a public statement. I'm angry about it, and I remain angry. We've seen speeding. It's not just in Lansing; it's happening everywhere. I talked to a lot of about this. We have just seen folks that are going way too fast on all of our streets, whether it's your neighborhood street, whether it's your corridor street. It is very frustrating. In terms of the incident over the weekend, I was speaking with the chief constantly. I was speaking with several council members. I think you've all heard from several of them. I talked to at least 6 of them over the weekend. I was at a council constituent meeting. I have been knocking doors. I talked to the aunt of the 3-year-old who was involved. And I'm talking to folks in the neighborhoods and throughout the city, because it's not just in that South Lansing neighborhood, it's the city. Yesterday I was talking to folks in the 4th Ward on the north side, up in Tecumseh River, and people are asking about it. They want to know, what happened. They want to know, what's going on. What are we doing? But they're also very understanding that we have 400 miles of roads, and I can't have a police officer on every mile of 400 miles of roads. So they're asking for we know that LPD every year, and they are doing their best. The chief is going to talk about the incredible amount of work they've been doing. Tickets, we are ticketing folks that are going excessive speeds, and trust me, I hear from those that got ticketed who then are upset because they think speed traps and things like that. So we hear from all of it. When folks see excessive speed, please 911. It's dangerous. Our cops want to hear it, so they know what's going. But there's going on. He'll talk about that. I mean, certainly we want to have more officers on the streets where we can, and they will be traffic will be patrolling. Of course, if there's an assault, if there's an incident, they have to come off the incident because residents are expecting to have an officer when something goes wrong. In my budget that I submitted to council, we did include 10 more police officers. We are waiting for the state to pass the public safety revenue sharing. The House passed it, I think it was 106, and now the Senate has it. I've spoken with Senator Anthony. I've spoken with our representatives, Senator Singh, and Senator Anthony. Says that the money's going to be in the budget, and now it's up to the policy to pass. So we continue to wait and push. Myself and mayors all throughout the state. We've talked with Ingham County Sheriff Scott Rigglesworth about patrols. The county is seeing this as well. The county saw this over the weekend, speeders and incidents. So the county's seeing this as well, and again, the chief can address that. We're seeing some safety measures. We know that the state is putting in the medians on, so that's good news. speed questions, those have to be addressed to MDOT. So I get asked a lot, well, how come MLK it's 45 and then it's 35 and then it's 45 again and then it's 35? Why the changes? And the answer is on the city street, it's 35. On the state street, it's 45. And the state has to navigate that. So we've had those conversations. Again, I mentioned the installation of the traffic islands. And then I've been talking about this all over the place, but for me, one of the best red light cameras. You put a camera on a traffic light, and the camera can gauge speed, can gauge if a car blows through a red light, and when that happens, we can set it. We could say if someone's going 5 over, 10 over, 15 over. If it's 45-mile-an-hour zone and someone's going 15 over, that's going 60 on a corridor street. That camera catches them. We should be with points. I talked to the mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, where they were able to do this, and he said that single-handedly reduced speeding without having to bring, a gazillion cops on, and which they couldn't do anyway. So I believe in that. I believe that red light cameras provide equity. Nobody's being stopped for socio or racial or other reasons. It's just if you go through that camera, you can be issued a ticket. So I'm hopeful that the legislature will take that up. Senator Anthony has introduced this in the past and has indicated that is the biggest disincentive to speed. That is somebody knowing that if they go too fast, they can get it. The red light camera is going to catch them. We'll tell people where the cameras are. I don't care. In Providence, again, they had it on a website. They literally have the locations of the cameras. We're going to put them on all of our corridors. We're going to put them everywhere we can. We just need to be allowed. So that's a pretty good solution. But until then, we know that our police department is doing a lot of work on speeding. So, and they have been for several years. So I'm going to have the chief come and talk about the incident. We won't call it an accident. We'll call it the crash. And all the work that's being done on speeding and drag racing. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. First, I want to apologize to our media. Several days ago, there was some scheduling going over some case facts, so everyone has all the appropriate facts on what actually occurred. April 20th, roughly 8:26 p.m. at the intersection of MLK and Pierce. It actually spanned about a city block between Pierce Road and Rio Road. So we initially responded to reports of 5 vehicles that were involved in a crash, and there were 13 total victims. Every single one of those victims was transported that day, degrees or at the time of the crash. These two, again, were originally both listed in critical condition. When something like this happens, we call in a special accident investigation team, accident reconstructionists. So they need to determine who's at fault, what were the speeds, and how did this play out? Because ultimately there's going to be some serious penalties to this, and it gets very granular in terms of knowing what people did at what times, how fast they were going, because we're going to end up probably presenting this in a court at some point. It was determined not only through our initial investigation, talking to witnesses, but watching the videos that many have seen, that there were 2 vehicles that appear to be racing each other, a Jeep Cherokee and a black Malibu or a Chevy. And they're going, or another vehicle pulls up to an intersection off of Pierce Road. And the Jeep Cherokee hits the vehicle road intersection, goes into northbound traffic, then that vehicle strikes head-on a heavy-duty Ford truck and a Lincoln car. All of these vehicles have multiple passengers in them. The driver of the Malibu who had the head-on collisions was a 19-year-old male. Again, he was ejected from the vehicle. We do not believe he was wearing a seatbelt at the time of the crash. And then the passenger of that vehicle was a 15-year-old male. The 19-year-old driver Originally, he was listed as critical. He has since recovered and was released from the hospital over the weekend. The 15-year-old male remains hospitalized and is still listed in critical condition. We do believe that the driver and the passenger, I should say, we do know that the driver and passenger of that vehicle are family. The driver of the other vehicle, the Jeep Cherokee, we have identified a 23-year-old man who had 2 additional passengers in his vehicle. All the 3 subjects in that vehicle had minor injuries. The other parties involved, they range in age from 3 years old to 52 years old. And their injuries range from potential broken bones to cuts and just report of pain. All the other injured passengers and drivers were treated at the hospital and released that same day. Again, this was an entire city block by the time this accident. The driver of the Malibu was wearing a seatbelt, which ultimately resulted in that driver being ejected through the windshield of the car. We have talked to all parties. The drivers deny that they were racing each other down the road. Our witnesses tell us otherwise. The video shows us otherwise. But that's why it's important to do a complete investigation. There are no arrests at this time. However, I have talked to the prosecutor. The prosecutor knows what we know about this case, knows that it's still an ongoing investigation, knows that the passenger is still in critical condition, and that we are going to be requesting serious charges. We can't request those yet until the accident's done and we have more facts, or through our investigation we've discovered more facts, and ultimately we know what all the injuries are. Because it's going to change. It's the difference between charging someone with reckless driving causing serious injury and the potential, if this person doesn't recover, reckless driving or a related homicide charge. There yet. It's going to take some time before we know where this ends up ultimately. But the prosecutor's office, they are aware of it and they are prepared. I also want to thank all the different that came to this scene. Not only did it occupy a lot of police department resources from Lansing, we called in accident investigations from our Tri-County regional team that were out there for many, many hours reconstructing this scene. But it also took ambulances from 5 or 6 different fire departments to transport these 13 victims. And that's a heavy list on our area, to know that we had that many fire department members and police members at one intersection. And it's all because of this driving. So it is important that we talk about this. But I also want to thank the witnesses who were at the scene. They were key for us understanding what's going on, and the businesses who provided us the video that we've shared, and so that, we all understand what happened in this instance. I want to go into a little bit of what we do proactively to address this stuff. So we know that speeding is an issue on our streets. The mayor talked that he gets many speeding complaints. That I get, he never sees. We get lots of speeding complaints. And it's not just the main thoroughfares. It's a lot about people's private streets, where they live at, the cars going down. And we try to address them all. We do this with our traffic unit. So we do have a dedicated traffic unit that goes out every single day. During busy hours, work traffic, they are mainly on our main thoroughfares. But in the midday, they move into the neighborhoods and they try to address issues that happen there. In addition to just having our traffic unit, several times a week we are supplementing that by putting out overtime for officers to do speed enforcement through our Operation Slowdown throughout the city. And again, these are focused on our major thoroughfares every night, or on the nights that they work. And again, it is multiple times every single week. It's not just the speeding complaints that we get in monitoring the roadways. We also get complaints about car clubs and car groups that are behaving recklessly or disturbing the neighborhood. So in addition to what I just said, on the weekends we put out problem-solving groups. So just this past weekend, with one of the groups that was out, they were focusing on this exact issue, and we got a call for a business after hours that was closed. We went there, we found a large group of cars that were there. We broke up the group, and in the process, some of the behavior, as you can expect, included some not so safe driving. So we did end up arresting one person when we tried to stop them, and they did not stop immediately, so we arrested them. We did issue a citation for speeding, and we issued another citation for someone running a red light. It was on Friday night. Saturday night, same group goes out. again, these groups are transient. They're kind of hard to find sometimes until somebody calls us and makes a complaint. So on Saturday night, we had no issues. Maybe that was a result of what we did on Friday night. So just so you're clear, we do have officers every day that are assigned to traffic, overtime officers during the week that are assigned to additional traffic enforcement, and weekend problem-solving officers that are assigned to the complaints about the car groups or car clubs that are taking place throughout the city. Also, a little bit about what those actions look like, some of our numbers. So last year, we had a 21% increase in our total number of traffic stops. That's a result of the number of resources that we are putting on the road to address these issues specifically, and in response to our citizens who are telling us being out of control in so many different areas. At this accident location, or general accident location, so far this year, we've made 244 traffic stops. This is not an area that we're unfamiliar with. There's been accidents here before, and there's been complaints here before. So in this general area, we've already made 244 traffic stops in this area, and we've written 203 tickets to people. Last year, in this same general area, we made over 800 traffic stops to address the speeding on MLK, specifically in this area. Overall, since 2023, we've issued 36 citations for reckless driving. And people that are drag racing, yes, drag racing is an offense in itself, but this is also considered reckless driving. So since 2023, we've issued 36 citations for reckless driving, 90 citations for careless driving, and we've issued 53 citations for careless drivings that resulted in an accident. So those two figures, reckless and careless, are kind of above and beyond just your normal speeding tickets. And in the last 2 years, we have had 2 instances where we issued drivers for drag racing. We place officers on our main thoroughfares every day. That's MLK, it's Cedar Street, it's Pennsylvania, it's Saginaw, it's Oak. These problems persist. So we know that there's several issues that are, we know that we're up. Our streets are labeled, people know speed limits. We've put up street signs, speed signs, so people know and are reminded of what the speed limits are. You've seen our speed radar trailers that move around the city and show people in very bright letters what the speed limit is and what their speed is. You can still see that this problem persists. The number one thing that we've found that actually makes a difference is our police officers being in these areas at the specified times and taking enforcement actions. And that's the route that we'll continue to take, is through enforcement actions. We're making a lot of traffic stops. We're issuing a lot of traffic tickets. I hate that this happened. For people to see what it looks like for a violent crash and to see the injuries that result from it is the reality of what we face every day when people are unsafe on our roads. And that's why it's our job to continue putting these resources out there and continue to take enforcement action. And that's what we'll continue to do, with the hope that there's a change in behavior. Any questions?
Yeah, so first I want to just clarify something to make sure I got this correctly. Those 36 citations for reckless driving and 90 citations for careless driving, was that just in that area?
No, that's citywide.
And I wanted to ask, so I've talked to some people over the last couple days about, I've heard people suggest traffic circles, I've heard people suggest diets where you're narrowing the road. What are some of the specific things you guys might look into to try?
So we look into those wherever we can. You can't put certain traffic calming on main roads, on state roads, on roads that are 45. You can't put a speed hump on a road that's 45 miles an hour. So part of Operation Slowdown is allowing folks to ask for requests for traffic calming, and we do that in the neighborhoods. So yes, we look at that in the neighborhoods. Now when you're looking at Pennsylvania, Cedar, Waverly, Jolly, the main thoroughfares, it's a lot more difficult to do these on main thoroughfares because this is a main thoroughfare and you can't have hitting a speed bump at 45 miles an hour. So yes, we do look at that in the neighborhoods. Folks are absolutely welcome to go to the Operation Slowdown website and put in their info. We're actually revising it. Traditionally, going back before I was mayor, you do a speed study. Someone makes a request, you do a speed study. Average speed is 10 over, and there's a certain volume of cars. Then you would postcard the neighborhood, and see if people want these measures. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I remember in 2002, when I first got involved in politics, this was a big issue in the Sycamore Park neighborhood, and I remember talking to Sandy because the neighbors wanted it, and then when they were put in, the neighbors didn't want it because they didn't want to have to drive over these. So it can be controversial. So we asked the residents of that area. So we've revised that to say the volume was something like 500 cars, and we know you're not going to get 500 cars in some neighborhoods. So average at 10 miles an hour over. We're going to put them in as our budget allows. We also put in some temporary speed humps into the existing budget at City Council's request, and that's going through the budget process now. So we absolutely look at all of these measures. We were looking at a and the businesses in that area, they didn't want it, so we didn't do it. You hear from others that say, well, people are going too fast or blowing the stop sign. Again, you have to talk to the folks in those areas and see what they want and do the studies and use the resources where you can.
In that area of MLK too, speaking to some of the folks over there who were talking about the hill when you come out from Pierce and turn onto MLK, as far as changes with signage, lights, things like that, there were some folks over there questioning what can we do, just the general speeding in areas where there's not great visibility. Is there something that can be done about that for just sort of the day-to-day, aside from drag racing, just general speeding and turning out onto the road?
Yeah, and again, signage. Sometimes some paint around on the streets, and having the islands will be helpful, because right now you've got a fairly wide street, so putting the islands in creates separation. Ironically, if you go there now, there's construction, and it's down to one lane. I was driving through yesterday, and it's down to one lane, and people are going like 20 miles an hour. So kind of shrinking it a little bit. Now we have to go get with the state for all that. This is a state road, so you can't shrink the road, you can't reduce the speed limit unless the state allows for it, because it's an MDOT. But again, the state and these traffic islands, I know Senator Anthony has been a champion of this. I know Councilman Hussein is very supportive. I'm very supportive. So we get them to put those in as soon as possible. Certainly, we've got these one part of Operation Slowdown was ordering these speed signs with "your speed is," so that folks know how fast they're going. Again, you set a cop behind control. We're telling them this is your speed. This is not like we're trying to trick people into a speed trap. This is your speed. You do that. You do, however many miles an hour over, and there's a cop there. You're getting ticketed. We're being pretty clear about it and pretty obvious about it. Slow down, or you're facing a ticket, because we don't want an accident.
In the same vein too, Council President Koss was also talking about assistance from an MSP chopper, kind of throwing out different ideas like that. What's the role of state police here too, and is that a possibility? When there is drag racing, I know there are rules, restrictions for on the ground, chasing after vehicles. But as far as in the moment, trying to catch those folks in the act, how does that look as far as getting that done too?
Yeah, he mentioned that to me also. He's told me that Detroit had made that request. And again, it's something that I mentioned at Cabinet yesterday, so I can let the chief address anything with MSP.
We try to take care of this with our own resources. I think we do as much as we can. We've constraints that we have. So when there's an idea that something could potentially be a benefit, like you mentioned, just some of their resources coming in, we're 100% on board with doing something collaborative to try to address this. Again, they have their restrictions, and the other part is they have requests for their resources. The hope is that, and I can confirm, we get a lot of help from MSP, and we're very grateful for it.
Chief, still there, follow-up. So a lot of Royal Oak have actually used impoundment of cars that have been stopped in drag racing. Are Lansing police prepared to do that, and if so, when will you begin?
That's an option that we need to take into consideration to try to get this under control. We 100% will. Now, I think it's, in this particular case, we don't know the association between these two cars that caused this crash. We don't know if there is one. it's a little easier when we go out and we find some of the groups that are doing like a car club or a car group, and then they start driving recklessly. We can make that association that they're involved with the same group and they're out here kind of doing this on their own versus just randomly happening as you're driving down the street. So I think what you're talking about, though, is people that they're targeting the car groups that are going out there and behaving recklessly. And for us right now, what we're doing has been working, and it's just moving, it's also moving people around. As I said, we have no reports of incidents. So hopefully we're small enough that when we do take enforcement, that's educating the other part of the group to say this isn't something we should be doing.
Just to clarify on that incident from Friday night, American Way, is that correct? That parking lot is part of the issue of the gathering that's happening in, it's also happening in front of the library on Cedar, so
Sure.
I can't say that that's necessarily an issue. But
It's hard to say that lighting would discourage a group of cars getting together. I mean, it could potentially be a factor. We see it happen in just, the main factor is a large gathering area, a large paved gathering area.
Question for you, Chief. So is the traffic unit currently fully staffed right now, and what is that number of officers that are in that unit?
They're not fully staffed. So in an ideal situation, we would have 6 officers in there. I believe if my memory serves me correct, we would have 6 officers in there and a sergeant. Right now, we have 4 total people. And so we do spread them out through the city. And it's out, we get so many requests for not only increased traffic, but officers, our violent crime officers, detectives, just more patrol officers in general. So every time that we are adding staff and people are being trained and put out on their own, we carefully put them where we think we're going to get the biggest benefit from.
Is that 4 including the sergeant, or just
Including the sergeant.
including the sergeant? And then with the 10 positions that you're asking for in the budget, how does that work when we have availability here and adding the addition of 10 more officers?
We are being tremendously aggressive with hiring, tremendously aggressive. We are funding people in the academy. We are getting other officers and bringing them here. We have done a tremendous job of putting the infrastructure in place for officers to want to come here. Everybody's having trouble recruiting officers. Ask any one of our surrounding communities. Ask East Lansing and Meridian. Ask Eaton County and Ingham County. Everyone's having trouble. We were able to get a great contract with our officers. A lot of things I thought would be important for attraction and retention. The state law changed a few years ago. One of the things that we saw was we were funding people to go into the academy, and then they would go through the academy and they would go somewhere else. State changed 2 or 3 years ago, which allowed us to sign a contract with those who go into the academy, saying that they have to come to the city. So that will change. So we've done a lot of work. LPD has done a lot of work working with our students in Lansing schools and all the places they can go to encourage folks agree to come to Lansing if we pay for them to go into the academy. So it's going to take a little while because you have to get through the next academy round, but we have several folks that we have cleared. And as we look at our numbers, we shoot to front load. We shoot to overstaff. So if we're down, whatever it is, 10, 12, 15, I think we're down 15 or 16. If we have 16 that are unfilled, by the time that academy graduates, we want to have 30 that will come to the city. Now, again, will we? I don't know. It depends on who gets through academy and who doesn't. But we know we'll have retirements. We know people leave. We want to have as many as we can, so we are going to overstaff, understanding that people will retire, that people will leave. So we're doing tons of work between LPD and HR on recruiting. We're also bringing in certifiable officers, so we put it out there that come to Lansing and you can get a pension, you can get a good salary, you can get the time with your family. All of those things are important for officers because you want to make sure that their mental health is stable because they see such unbelievably awful things. So we are providing all those things through our contract, and I've had other mayors in the state tell me that they are disappointed with me because we're putting things in and now they're going to have to put it in, otherwise they're going to lose officers to Lansing. It's a recruitment battle, and we worked very closely with our police union to make sure we get to the right places. Chief works very closely with the union and with folks in terms of scheduling, and so we're doing our best to get it. But as Chief said, I have heard from council members and neighborhood leaders and residents, how come we don't, all of our community policing officers filled? And the answer is because we have to spread it around. If we fill all those, we can't fill all patrol. If we fill all patrol, we can't fill detectives or VCI. So we're doing our best. The chief's doing his best to spread it around. But I want to be fully staffed. And again, to do that, you bring in as many as you can, but we don't have enough officers we can bring in that are certified. So we are putting that's, and as soon as the academy graduates, again, we'll do it again.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, can you please clarify exactly how many positions there are for police officers on the road? How many are vacant?
Total?
And how many retirements do you expect this year?
Yeah, total, what are we
I
at?
can speak to that.
Yeah, okay.
So we're authorized for 212 total police officers. We currently have 187. We have 5 people that will be graduating from our police academy next week. And we are currently in the background phase of reviewing 30 candidates who have applied and passed our initial interviews to go to the next academy. We also have a number of people that are in our background process who are, we call certified, certifiable, who are coming from different agencies to work here. So it's a process. Academy is 6 months long, and then our training process is 6 months long too. So we know that it's a sustained division, the mayor, to get to that fully staffed position or that fully staffed mark, and our officers can't wait for that, and I owe them that. They can't wait to get into our special assignments. They want to be in the traffic unit. They want to be in these other positions, and that's a lot of reason why people come here.
And I hope you'll ask our neighboring communities as well. I mean, just putting Lansing out there without talking to any of our neighboring communities or our counties, this has to be put in context that we are all fighting for the officers that are out there, and we're all doing our best.
Now, a question for both of you too. Watching that video back, you both have spoken out a little bit about the anger, the frustration, the kind of shock at seeing something like this. But really watching that happen in real time, we've all seen it by now too. This really just alarming accident. Just walk me through the feelings of seeing that, a crash like this happening on really like a local, business-filled road. Just some of the emotions that I brought up. Any message that you think should come from this, or example that should come from this for folks?
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful, and to see that young people, these two, are engaging in that activity is terrible. And I want to turn back time and tell them, what are you doing? This isn't how you act on city streets. It's very difficult because we, as the city, we're expected to prevent everything, and I get that. But sometimes people take actions that just are not smart. And maybe they've done it before and gotten away with it, and maybe, they lost control this time, whatever the situation was. But, my hope is that every person out there realizes of doing something like a drag race on a city street during the day, and how it will impact the community and innocent folks. Just again, drag racing, what could happen, I would do it, but we can't predict everything. We can do our best to try and prevent. But with 400 miles of roads and hearing this from neighbors all throughout the city, is frustrating. That's why I think red light cameras will help out, because at the very least, it will provide expensive tickets and points on licenses for people that are doing this, which will discourage the activity. Realistically, they should know not to do it, but people don't know that. We're going to take every avenue we can with police officers and with technology, and letting folks know this is a dangerous situation. This is what can happen.
Mayor Short, just really quick for you. So you talked about how there's construction there right now, and it's kind of artificially narrowing the road a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you guys, I know you said you guys don't have jurisdiction over the road necessarily, it's an MDOT road. Would you guys work with them
Sure.
to artificially narrow the road, maybe putting in some of those long-term?
Well, that's what they're doing with the traffic islands. The traffic islands are going to put the islands in the middle that are going to, in essence, it will slow down the traffic. But yeah, absolutely. We talk to our public service folks, talk to MDOT all the time. I would love to. Now, the flip side of that is going to be every person who's now going 15 miles an hour down MLK and will complain to you all, and I'll have the media come to me and say, folks can't get in and out and frustrated. I'd love to keep it at, if we could make MLK 35 miles an hour and construct the road so that people are going 35 miles an hour, I'd be fine with it. But we can't because we don't have jurisdiction. So, we'll talk about the speed limit, and we will how we can. I went through at 2 o'clock, and it was going 20 miles an hour. I can't even imagine rush hour. Then you're going to have people backed up, and you're going to have businesses that are closed off, and so you have other situations that come. So I'd love to get it so that it's it's down to the speed limit, and I will absolutely work with MDOT on that to figure out what we can do within the roads to do that. I mean, it's just a matter of the structure of the road at rush hour versus 11 p.m. Same road, different number of cars.
And one kind of just overarching question for you. So you talked about kind of speaking to people who might be reckless driving, how that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
What would you say to, there's community members that are understandably frustrated. I've talked with people over the last couple of days, and who live near MLK, and they're saying, I hear it all night long. It's disturbing sleep, even on top of the much worse problems it can cause.
So,
what would you say to people that are getting impatient?
I mean, now, I'm also talking to the community members because I'm running for re-election, and I'm also talking to community members. And I've talked to a lot of them over the weekend. And I believe that people they would like to see the traffic slower. They understand, how many cops we have. They understand 400 miles of road. They understand 100,000 calls. They understand. They didn't know all the things that are going on. So we're really happy that you're going to share that. I think people are mostly understanding, but yes, they have all been on the street when they have been passed by someone going 80 miles an hour on MLK, as have I. And if I can get the license plate, I'll call 911. I'll tell everybody, call the cops. Let them know, hey, I'm at Mount Hope and MLK, and there's someone going 80 miles an hour. And if they can, they're going to send someone down to Jolly and MLK and try and get that person. That's what I tell people. Help us out. Make the call. Let's get a cop there. Talk to your legislator, because if that person's going 80 miles an hour and they're going through the light at Holmes and MLK, I'd love to get them a nice sized ticket. That's the reality. I mean, most people are not drag racing. They're just going really fast. And many of them don't live in our city. So I think the consequences that we can get for folks that are doing that and making conditions unsafe, we're working on all of it. But again, I have been there just as you have, just as everyone has, to see that person, cut in front of you and pass you and think, man, if only I would write a ticket. But we can let them know, and then again, we can use technology if allowed to issue those tickets, get those folks points on their license. There's nothing that discourages speeding like getting a ticket and getting points on your license. Now, that being said, they could pass a cop, see a cop coming and slow down to the speed limit. As soon as they get past that cop, what are they going to do? They're going to hit the gas, right? Because you can't have a cop every 100 feet. And if you do, then they call them speed traps. And then we get criticized for that. So nothing is easy in government and trying to get things done, and people are not always going to do the common sense thing. So we're going to take every measure we can, but we would certainly ask folks to make the call and help us out.
Well, forgive me for bringing up street racing again. That's what got us here. And Chief, you made a reference to club activity and car clubs. What do you believe happened in this case, in this crash on MLK on Thursday? Do you believe it was an organized event or was it just two guys that pulled up next to each other, they nodded at each other and they took off?
So this is just, I've been to the situations where there's car clubs, and I want to be real specific. A car club is not a bad thing. To have people that gather to show off their nice cars, it's the few of people within those groups that act irresponsible, that kind of ruin it for everybody. And we've gone through this before. We've met with those groups. They've met with us and said, like, this is not what we want to stand for. In this particular case, just on optics, I'm looking at the car. when I go to those scenes, a Chevy Malibu is not someone who's hanging out in a situation like that.
Or a
Jeep
Jeep
Cherokee.
Cherokee.
Yeah, and I look at this and I think it's just bad behavior. I think it's irresponsible behavior. Why these two met up in a certain area and why they chose to do this. Again, I don't know the relationship between these two, but I don't see anything. So I just think this is two people that made a horrible decision, and unfortunately they impacted the lives of 11 other people. And one person is in critical condition because of it. That's the part that should frustrate all of us. I take that responsibility as the chief of police to what we're doing. Share the information when we're doing this stuff so people understand the idea that we don't accept this.
Any idea yet how fast those two vehicles were going, or any ballpark through this investigation, how far they were, or fast they were going down the street?
I have no estimates on speed, but we will have that at the end of the investigation.
Right,
Chief,
I gotta
just
run,
as a
I gotta.
quick follow-up.
Yeah, quickly, because I gotta head down to
Because you
Kavanaugh
didn't
Park.
answer it,
Oh.
is how many retirements are you expecting this year from the
Oh,
187?
we can get you that number. Oh,
You don't know that off the top of your head?
I think there's 3 more retirements this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm counting on the people, and yeah, I think there's 3 more retirements in 2020.
and we calculate that by who's hitting 25 years. Sometimes people stay past the 25 years. So we can tell you through our HR how many people are gonna hit 25 years. They might or might not retire, they, probably will. So we can get you that number, but again, we're just caution for that. Plant some trees.